In today's video, we're going to be looking at two giants of the aviation world. Firstly, Qatar Airways will be reflecting on some of their newest onboard products alongside their A380, and we'll be taking a look at those economy seats on the upper deck, which is really rather unique. In contrast, today I've lined up many of my recent experiences with Emirates. We'll be taking a look at their flagship A380 and some of their absolute newest offerings on board. So let's get this video underway and let's get these two absolute giants of the aviation industry head to head. First up, let's talk check-in. This is such an important part of the economy experience. After all, this will probably be many passengers' very first touch point with the airline. Qatar operate mostly manned desks around the world. I particularly like their one world priority lanes, particularly when check-in is very busy. With Emirates, a slightly different approach. I've always had an automated experience with them. I have to say this flows beautifully well in the various different outstations and also their hub around the world. Top marks to both airlines in this particular regard. Many people do like having that human touch, but I have to say the efficiencies that are gained via having the automated approach, particularly as slick as Emirates operate it just here at their base at DXB, does work particularly well. Both airlines attract passengers that ultimately are connecting through both Doha and Dubai as each airline's hub. For me, Doha wins out slightly. The facilities, particularly for premium passengers, but also economy passengers here with status, really do win out over the slightly older DXB. That said, Emirates are looking to move into a brand new home in future years, but certainly their hub at the moment works very nicely indeed, and there are a range of lounge options for those that want to pay to upgrade to them. As ever, the most important aspect will of course be the onboard experience. Qatar are currently going through a renovation program with many of their aircraft. Here you can see where the 787 contrasts the slightly older design. That said, I've never found space an issue at all on board Qatar Airways. For size comparison's sake, I'm around 6 foot or 180 centimeters and certainly have never had any issues. Both the 777, the 787, the 350 and indeed the 380, as we'll check out here, has always been nice and roomy. That said, I recently did a video with Qatar where I flew from Bangkok through to Doha. That was on board their A380 and I took a lot of time as part of that video to stress the importance of sitting, if you can, on the upper deck. That's where the layout gets far less dense and I found it to be an incredibly roomy experience and one that also felt like quite a small, intimate cabin. For me, Qatar are in line with the absolute best economy experiences I've ever had in the world. And I would say if you are looking to fly economy, particularly ultra long haul, flying on board the A380 on the upper deck is about the best way you can indeed do it anywhere around the world. So, how do Emirates compare? It's an awful lot here to go up against. Well, certainly aboard their flagship 380, and in fairness, even aboard their 777, Emirates really do incredibly well. Top tip from my side, if you are flying the 380 with Emirates, try and get the absolute front cabin. Sadly, there's no seats on the upper deck in economy with Emirates. That's taken up with those pesky business class passengers in their lovely bar upstairs. So that said, you've only got the choice of the downstairs, so do try and get as far forward as you can. That will always be as quiet an experience as possible, getting ahead of those engines and also, of course, being the first off the aircraft. Just like Qatar, space certainly isn't an issue at all. And I have to say, just like Qatar, experiences on board Emirates have always been in line with the most roomy economy experiences I've ever had. Well, let's take to the skies and check out the in-flight experience with both airlines. One of the most important elements for, of course, everyone jumping on board will always be those all-important food offerings. Qatar do particularly well just here. Like Emirates, they have their menu set out online, so you can check it out on any major device that you would like to, just using the onboard Wi-Fi, and it's of course free for access into the menu. I've always found the food and beverage offerings to be very generous by economy standards, and I have to say the presentation with Emirates is something that does look particularly good in today's day and age. On their medium length long haul flights, they'll typically have a main service which will take place depending on the time of the day, be it breakfast, lunch or indeed evening dinner, and then there will then be a secondary snack that then follows around 3 or 4 hours later. Here's an example of a typical snack selection from Qatar. On Emirates, I feel as though they do things a little bit different. Food is such a huge occasion when flying with Emirates. They do have a policy, it seems, with the cabin crew where they will wake people up for food, so it's clearly quite an important aspect with their passengers. Now, when it comes to the economy class menu, again, this can be accessed in the online space using a major device, and it's something like Qatar that's set out very nicely indeed. For me, where the two airlines diverge quite significantly is the sheer quantity of offering on board Emirates. Both offerings, in terms of quality, I would say are very good indeed, certainly by economy food standards, which, as we all know, certainly aren't excellent around the world. But with Emirates, what I would stress is the sheer quantity. So if food is certainly something that's important to you, I would actually recommend Emirates in this particular regard. Just a couple of weeks ago, I flew with them from their home in Dubai through to London's Heathrow, and just here was one of their offerings on board. You can see, albeit small items, but it was around a 6 or 7 course economy lunch. Really top marks in this regard. Where Emirates perhaps fall down ever so slightly is that follow-up smaller snack sometimes before landing. This was an example of the breakfast, and you can see certainly in terms of presentation they're a little bit behind, but certainly for me here when it comes to food, Emirates just ahead. Next up, let's talk onboard entertainment, such an important factor, particularly with those long haul flights. Emirates and Qatar do quite nicely here on the external camera front. When it comes to movies and content, Qatar are pretty strong in this particular area, and all of their planes that I've flown with in the last year or two have always been Wi-Fi enabled with 1 hour free for onboard messaging. All in all, a fairly strong offering from Qatar. So, how do Emirates compare? Well, this is a particularly strong area for them. Reason being, for years they've had the ICE entertainment system, which is largely regarded as being one of the most content-rich systems anywhere across the industry. For me, where they do particularly well is how generous they are on the Wi-Fi front. On a recent flight, I enjoyed unlimited messaging right the way across the flight, and they even had some unlimited packages for some very competitive pricing. Indeed, Emirates ahead just here. So whether it's really good onboard food or very glitzy features that you're looking for, such as decent quality headphones, really nice spacious bathrooms, or as a trademark of Emirates, even little stars across the ceiling, both airlines here are very strong indeed. Beyond the flashy onboard features, for me, where Emirates will always be at their absolute best is giving people the opportunity to transit through Dubai. As my old home, I can certainly recommend this as a fantastic place to stop off for a couple of hours, and of course Emirates will always ensure to be able to take you there and then get you on your way as soon as you want to move on. Certainly a big benefit of flying with the airline. For me, however, Qatar have long been a personal favourite, and that's ultimately because when you fly with Qatar, you're flying with a much larger group of airlines. The One World Alliance is made up of some of the absolute best airlines in the world, and because of that reason, it's such a strong holistic offering. As a result, it's much easier to gain status and ultimately make that economy experience that much more bearable, whether it's first class check-in, lounge access, or whatever the various airlines may well be offering. So for me, that puts Qatar ever so slightly ahead. That said, both airlines absolutely phenomenal and real class leaders within this space. If you enjoyed this video, check out my recent reviews of flights with both airlines. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in a future video.